Welcome back, guys. So this is a little different, like Bryce said in his story that dropped a week ago. This is the story of Gannett Ruckman. Kind of described it as the highs and lows, which will be dropping this coming Friday. We're recording this a little earlier. It's a little different, as Bryce stated before. It's not an interview format where we just sit and pepper questions off each other and talk football. This is something that's more serious than football, and it's something that needs to be discussed about and talked about more. So this is the exact reason why Bryce and I feel it's the right time to do this, which there's really no right time. This is the time. And I think that's kind of the point of this. Bryce went last week with his story, and that kind of inspired me. I think not only for this episode, but also just to be aware and how severe mental health really is. Because kind of before we dive into some of my experiences and my specific circumstances, I kind of got the first taste and real feel of mental health my senior year of high school, which was Bryce's freshman year, as he talked about in his video, when he started going through stuff with baseball and everything else. That's kind of when we got closer as friends again. I was finishing up my senior year of high school baseball, and he was playing his first year of college baseball. So we were kind of helping each other both get through those seasons. And then we obviously bonded and came even closer through Bryce's trials and tribulations, as I was kind of there on firsthand experience, noticing it, seeing it, talking to him about it, helping him with it. Kind of when he got stuck, I would get stuck with him because we are trying to find something to kind of, help pull him out of it and get into the right frame of mind. So I think that was kind of my first actual real world experience. Cause again, I'm going to talk back to Bryce's thing, but the same scenario with me, my whole life growing up, baseball and other sports. I played golf and baseball my last couple of years of high school, but everything else growing up, sports was always kind of my way out of just, the reality of the normal world, just everything. I knew that sports were always going to be there, more specifically baseball, because I played baseball for 12, 13 years of travel ball, little league, high school, all of the above. Everything you could have done for baseball, I did with the Freeport Sticks travel organization and Freeport High School baseball program. It was the time of my life, the best thing that could ever happen to me. I'm grateful for everybody that came in my path and, kind of helped shape me into the player and man that I am today. But there's a flip side to that it was all good and happy. And, I never really ran into a lot of problems as I was I'd say a pretty gifted baseball player growing up, playing all over the field, catching until I got into high school, outfield, first base, pitching all through high school, playing on the varsity team for 3 years, starting, winning a conference championship. There's not a whole lot more being all conference my senior year for first base. There's not a whole lot more I could have asked for in that. And that just translated to me, being able to be in this awesome position to sign and eventually commit to Central Methodist University in late 2018, 2019, when I was deciding where to go for my college experience for baseball and to also further my education. So, I was kind of all new to this. And then also coming down to CMU after committing and graduating and all that, I kind of made a transition, and that was to be a pitcher only in college, which was something different for me that I'd never really experienced because I've always been a position guy and then kind of pitched on the side and kind of was a late bloomer and came about as a pitcher just the last couple of years of my high school playing days. So coming here and doing that was a change, no doubt. But right away, I excelled on the field, really throwing well as soon as I got here, being the only freshman up on the varsity team practicing and playing and all that aspect, and there wasn't really whole lot of learning curves. The scheduling, the planning, all that, the time management with school was just something that I knew that was going to come with it. And I knew that I was going to create stress, and I was handling that, doing all that, and felt like I was on top of both of that and baseball, which I knew in myself, which is what I wanted to do and what I knew I could do. And I was doing that. That was about the first semester, my freshman year. And then coming back, second semester, practicing, getting geared up to start the season of the spring of 2020, 2 years ago, which obviously everybody knows what happened with 2020, but kind of those months leading up to it, I came back and kind of I got into a weird headspace. We were back early January. There was nobody practicing here for baseball. I couldn't really describe it, what some of the stuff I'm going to say. It happened to be kind of a thing. I don't want to get too technical with the baseball stuff because that's not the point of this, but also it was just a mental barrier that I got. Some people call it the yips, whatever you want to call it in a baseball sense. But there was a mental block there on all of my years and my prior experience, muscle memory, everything kind of just got zapped over a couple of weeks' time with confidence, mechanics, mental exercise, just everything kind of went out the window for me. And it was like I was a newborn, an infant learning the world and learning how to walk. But that was me just learning how to do that with baseball. And it sounds so cliche, and some people might think it's even funny, but it was a real thing, and it was something that really swallowed up my love for baseball and pretty much became extinct from my love of the game of baseball. And I ended up not making the travel roster, and ended up redshirting just for those couple of weeks of me, just not being able to find myself. And then that came to me not being able to produce what I wanted to do on and off the field with baseball sense. And once that went, again, there's no real reason to why it happened. I don't understand that. I don't know why. And that's the same thing as why we're talking about this, because it's mental health. You don't always know what's going to happen or what triggers you and what's going to make you feel this way or not feel this way. That's kind of the unknown and some of the problems that come along with mental health, regardless of what you're dealing with. So it was something that I really had to, reevaluate myself, because I felt like I was alone and lost, because baseball was that way out, like I said earlier, for my whole life. And now all of a sudden I wasn't going to be traveling. I wasn't going to be dressing. I wasn't going to be playing. It was my first baseball season of not being on it. I was on the team, but I wasn't on the team, to so to speak. So that hurt, and that really hurt me as a person, as a baseball player, because it was something I worked for. I worked really hard towards to get there, and then boom, it was taken just because uh, something that went wrong with my mental lapse and my mental stability, I guess, when it comes to playing baseball. And right away, I thought it was mechanical. I thought it was something a little fixed. I was going to be able to, hey, boom, next day we're going to get back into this. And then it started working up anxiety every day, having to go to baseball and just simply picking up a baseball and playing catch. Ended up being one of the easiest and most enjoyable things for me to do, to probably one of the hardest things that I hated and did not look forward to doing on a daily basis. And this was going on as my teammates were, getting ready for their season. They were starting to play games, and I was sitting at home on the weekends. It was a really tough thing. And ever since then, stuff just has never been super consistent with me, with my mental stability. I think with my stress, with my anxiety, all those different levels, because I had to like relearn how to play catch. It sounds so weird and stupid in some regards. Trust me, I've thought through every possible way of how this has happened, but I had to pretty much relearn how to get confident enough to throw the baseball and play, to just even have the love to go up and show up to baseball, because that wasn't there for months. And then to some extent, going home then a month or two after this happened, my freshman year, because of COVID, was kind of a blessing in disguise, or kind of the opposite of that, because it gave me a time to 2 3 months of going home, not having a whole lot to do. The world was kind of shut down. It was a little band-aid on the wound for me, so to speak, as I was not able to really, I didn't have to focus on baseball because there wasn't much going on. It was just schoolwork at home, relaxing, enjoying the time with my family, and that type of stuff. Coming home early, it kind of helped me out a little bit in that sense, but it only was a temporary fix. And coming back a year ago for my sophomore year, it was still in and out. Some days I'd feel really confident showing up to the park. Some days, probably if some things went wrong with school or some of my stuff off the field, it affected me going to baseball, and I didn't want to go and not even throw a baseball, even though that's the thing that I was recruited and brought in to do here at CMU. So it was it was the toughest thing I've gone through in my life. And I'm not saying that is a minor thing, because I've been very blessed and fortunate in my life, but the way that the baseball has kind of shifted how I thought and felt about a lot of things has really turned me and helped shape me into the person I am today. And I turned that and put a positive spin on that, because that's what you got to have as your approach when dealing with mental stuff. Instead of saying mental stuff, I don't like saying that. I'm going to just kind of switch it up here. It was really anxiety is what drove it up. Every time I would have to go play catch after not feeling too well, I would just get worked up, tense. My body would kind of go numb. I was thinking too much instead of not actually throwing it. It's a lot easier said than done, because I would tell myself that every day. And it would become a mental thing where my head would just spin up and blur. And then boom, I was walking guys, I was not being able to play catch. It was so weird, and it was almost like a surreal moment, like, wow, what's happening to me? Like, this is almost feels like something I can't control, even though I'm doing everything in my power to not let it happen. And I think that was really the frustrating thing. But I think out of all of it, I got a way different perspective, and the perspective was that baseball is not the end all be all for my life, and that doesn't define me kind of as who the person that I am and that I'm working and striving to be. It's just a helping hand and leading me to that person, and that's kind of the approach I've changed now. Kind of go back to the timeline. Then after I was having some of those experiences again last year, it took me probably, I would say, a full year to year and a half to fully work out of that, to feel comfortable throwing the ball just 20, 30 yards. It's so small, but it's so minor sounding, but it was very major in my head and with my physical ability and talent at the time. What really helped was this last summer I went up to Pierce, South Dakota and played summer ball, and that was just a really good getaway, meeting some new guys, playing with some different people for a summer, and kind of not worrying about school, the pressure of, just always having to win, because it's what you want to do in your college regular season. But this was summer ball to work on some stuff. And for me, it was my first opportunity since my high school days to get consistent inning, consistent workload, and just everything that I want to get me better and hopefully, compete on the collegiate mound as a pitcher. Good, through over 30 innings last summer. It was a really good confidence boost. Some days I didn't have it. It was tough playing catch, but I fought through it because it was a new thing. Some people didn't really understand some of the stuff that I was coming from, or some of my problems that I was, kind of dealing with from beforehand. So it was kind of just a fresh restart button that really was beneficial to me. And I found my confidence again. Just happened to be it towards the end of that, I faced another tribulation with the baseball, and it was a finger injury. I ended up tearing a corner of my ligament. And now, fast forward 6, 7 months later, here we are now, and I'm still dealing with it, still not being able to be 100% competing out on the field like I would like to. It sucks. It's, again, with the mental lapse and the burdens and all that I faced my freshman year all the way till now with this injury, it's tough, and it really tests me as a person, because the safety net, the off the field, or the extracurriculars, which are baseball, which are practice, are all affected. It all affects me. And it's generally, you want it to be in a good way, having that 2, 3 hours to go kind of blow some steam off, lift some weights in the morning with your teammates and all that. But instead of that, it's kind of became, for a certain period of time while I'm being in school, it became a burden, something extra that I didn't want to do, that I didn't feel like I needed to do. But it was kind of a personal thing that, all of a sudden it was, why I'm still doing this. I'm still playing. I'm not giving up. Why am I still here? And I kind of had to find my why of why I was still playing, why I'm still grinding, why I still want to be a successful college baseball player. And it was the fact that, one, the love of the game and winning. Just there's no better feeling than showing up and having your stuff be better than somebody else's stuff on a given day, and letting them know that you're better and you get the win at the end of the day. And then the second thing is the atmosphere. It's going back to what I said earlier about a blanket of safety net. There's something about game days when you show up with your brothers, the guys that you worked and fought with for so long, and putting it all onto culmination onto the field, and kind of, showing you that's who the person that's you are, that your teammates have worked for, and putting it together and seeing the finished product on the field, which is ultimately getting you the wins and all that. And that's still kind of my driving force to all this. And that's why I love it and still am playing the game of baseball. It's because my teammates, and it's just the bond that you create from all the early mornings, late nights with the weights, practice, extra stuff, games, travel, fall ball. There's a lot that you can throw into that, but that's when you finally truly figure out who somebody is and their character, when you see it day in, day out doing different stuff and getting tested. And that's kind of what I like, because instead of just falling down with mental lapse, the anxiety, that type of stuff that came about from just playing catch to now with an injury, I'm still not giving up. I'm still not backing down. And I think that's the most important thing to why you only need to make yourself happy. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned out of all this. I had somebody tell me something kind of when I was going through stuff 2 years ago with my mental stuff. And the person said, you're always kind of worried. You always seem like you're kind of worried about what other people think of you. And that really hit home, because that was something I kind of focused on, I think, too much growing up. I was kind of always was wondering what other people thought of me, and like kind of what their image was of me, even though I knew what myself was. And that was kind of the hardest thing that once I started realizing and going through stuff on my own, is I don't care what other people are judging me or saying about me, because the only thing that matters is what I think and what I believe. So when I was worried about what other people were thinking, and then also having to worry about my problems going on with baseball, there's too much there, and then those two things just don't mesh, and then your head's gonna explode if those two things can't work each other out. So I eliminated the one thing, and that was eliminating what other people thought of me. And it's kind of been a transitional approach, an outlook, so to speak, that I've kind of talked about, discussed with very select few individuals I know and trust, and talk about this as they've heard majority, if not all, of this to some extent. One of those guys being Bryce, and he understands that and the outlook. And I think one of the other key things that has kind of really helped in my culmination of meeting this head on, understanding what it was, understanding what it is, that it's still going on. You can't control it, but there are things that you can do on the side to help control it. And that's kind of the biggest thing that I've felt and that I've learned through this process of dealing kind of with my anxiety over these last 2 years. And the biggest thing for me is eliminating your phone time. And it's tough. It's social media. We're so ingrained with our lives, our technology. But what are you doing? I challenge you guys. What are you doing for an hour or two a day to not be on your phone, to go out and do something, to go out and exercise, lift some weights, take a walk, take your dog for a walk, go out if you got a little brother or sister that plays a sport, do that. Just something to eat your day up that you don't have to think and be stressing about other stuff, but you're also still enjoying the moment. And that's not from a third party source, from a phone, from a laptop, a TV, anything else other than the sheer love and connection that you have with yourself, and also maybe the people that you're doing that activity with. And that's kind of been the biggest thing for me, because I know when my stuff's bad, when my anxiety, when my head gets spinning, when my head gets going, it's when I have downtime. And sometimes it's a cardinal sin for me, because I always have to be doing something. I'm one of those guys that are always moving, as you can see right now with my chair. I'm always moving, doing something. But it's whenever I'm not doing anything, what am I doing with my time? And that's when you can either get ate alive, which I do some days. You're going to have those. When I talk about the highs and lows, some days you're going to have highs, and some days you're going to have lows. And it's about what you're doing in between those to even out the highs and the lows. And I think that's the biggest thing that goes into this, because my highs are when I'm doing stuff. I'm at the field, we're winning baseball games, I'm lifting weights with my team, I'm doing homework, I'm getting good grades in school, hanging out with my friends. But then sometimes are the lows is when I just come to my room and lay down and don't have anything to do. And then I start to think. And when you start to think more things through your head, it only is going to end up bringing some bad thoughts in there, whether it's intentional or not. That's the thing. It's just not. You can't say, I'm going to do this and not do this. Everything goes hand in hand. And that's kind of the message that I get, that I'm giving with mental health, with anxiety, with depression, with ADHD, with ADD, just everything that goes into this category of mental health. There's no rhyme or reason for some things, and some things just trigger you in a different way that don't trigger other people. I really want individuals out there to understand that and recognize that it's something that each unique person and individual are going through on a daily basis, and they're trying to figure out themselves, while other people are trying to judge them and create their own perception of them, which that's not fair at all. And I think that's another thing that's really been beneficial for me. It's just staying in my own lane. It's so cliche, it's so simple, but it also has 1,000 meanings in it. Also, is what can I do in the present to make myself better as an individual and more happy as an individual? And those are the two biggest and most important things you need to be asking yourself. What are you doing daily to make yourself happy and a better person overall? And I think that's what it comes down to when you got to combat your anxiety. When some days are not going good, I'm thinking about upcoming schoolwork that I got, games, classes I'm going to be missing, all the little things that create stress and anxiety and those type of things. It kills you. It eats at you, because I've been there. I still go through it on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. I'm not saying that I've mastered this at all, but things that have helped me get through. Okay, I got a week's long worth of homework. What am I doing right now to help get that homework total down by the end of the week? It's a marathon, not a sprint. And that's what I mean by that is you're going to have to run each mile at a certain pace to finish your marathon. And it's the same concept with your schoolwork, with your social life. Little steps, little miles, meeting your miles at the same time, which is getting your work turned in on a Monday or Tuesday, but you also have homework Wednesday, Thursday, Friday that week. You got to make sure you get the Monday work turned in, then the Tuesday work before you move on to Wednesday. Then you got to do that. It's so on and so forth. It's so simple, but it starts with your daily routine and how you base it, because your daily routine, your daily vibes, everything's going to give off either good or bad vibes. And that's going to come directly back to you. And I think that's the biggest thing that I have. All the advice and all my opinions of what I'm saying right now is what I applied to my life as I've dealt with anxiety over these last couple of years. And it's a whole different form when you talk about like a social anxiety, which has changed me a lot. I'm only around the same, 30, 40 guys of baseball. And those are my boys. I feel most comfortable when I'm, chilling with them, hanging out with them, at the field with them. But another thing that's changed for me since I've gotten out of high school is also just a social anxiety of going out, talking to new groups of people, seeing new people that I don't know. Before, I would have been kind of the guy to probably go up and talk to them right away, maybe start a conversation off, even not knowing the person beforehand. With all the stuff that happened a couple of years ago, it kind of just created a landslide for my anxiety across the board, not just on baseball. And that's kind of the biggest thing I'm getting at here. My anxiety, my confidence level, all that was kind of shot when I had baseball and all those stuff going around, because everything else just got shut off as a direct result of my anxiety with baseball. And it sucks because I just sometimes, I walk into class and I feel like if some people are looking at me weird way, or just I'll start breathing, my heart rate will get going. I'll start breathing faster, and then I'll have to take some deep breath exercises that I do just to calm down and enjoy it and get my breathing ready to listen to class. It's those are little triggers that I don't know what causes them, but I know how to combat them and deal with them now because I've been dealing and fighting and getting through the anxiety on a daily basis for over 2 years now. And that's something that I'm proud of as myself, as an individual, that I found way that I don't know exactly what's happening and what's causing it, but I know what to combat and how to fix it in the situation when it does happen. Those are the little things, the little W's, something that I kind of tell Bryce. Those little W's, those little things, again, doing that day in, day out will help create the foundation for you to live a happier and less stressful and anxious life. Notice how I said less. It's not going to go away. It's just but you finding trigger for you finding, excuse me, I'm going to drink of water. You finding solutions to your stress and anxiety problems is going to go the longest way to making sure the stress and anxiety is not as bad and as severe, or doesn't pop up as much with exercises and daily routines that maybe you can find, that I have found to go through. And I'd love to talk about it more if people would like to reach out after hearing this video. But it's just, there's no right or there's not one thing that I could put my finger on and go back to over 2 years ago what caused that and what has still led to some of the things that have happened today. It's just not. But that's also life. You can't control some things that happen to you. And that's another thing that I've kind of learned through all this, that you have to be steadfast, because there's going to be stuff thrown your way. Again, the highs and the lows. You're going to have highs some days. You're going to have lows some weeks, some months, some years. You're going to have a better year than maybe the year before. That's just how it goes. That's life. And that's dealing with the highs and lows. Everybody's going to love their highs, but not everybody's going to love their lows. And dealing with the lows to even out the highs and the lows is going to be the biggest thing that you can do for yourself and figuring out it. And it's something that I'm slowly doing. I'm not even close to being mastered at that, or probably never will, but it's something that each day I'm doing something that's getting me closer to that better end result of not having to deal with so much stress and anxiety on a daily basis. And it's something that makes me happy that I've been able to do this while living on my own, being 6 hours away from home. It's something it's really made me grow up and just change my perspective of not judging other people on a first glance, first impression basis. You just don't know what other people are going through. And the biggest thing is, I found myself, it's made me happier being in my own skin and some of those things. And you wouldn't think that would come out of some of these negative situations initially, but as time goes and you continue to battle and grow through it, there are positives that come out of the negatives regardless of it. And that's the balance of the highs and the lows. Thank you.